people pleasing sucks. It sucks, okay? And this has been something that I have dealt with for a long time in my life, and it ruined just my life in general. It made my life horrible. And I'm going to explain what happened in my life, what situation I was in, and how I came out of that. And, I'm not perfect. I don't never people please ever. But I genuinely have gone through so much transformation and I feel so much more like my authentic self. I don't feel like I have to prove anything or get validation. And I can just relax in a conversation with people now. So I'm going to share my journey. It started when I was very, very young. I just talked about this in another video, but I had really, really bad eczema. You can barely see remains of it because it's mostly gone away, but I had horrible eczema covering most of my body. I would be scratching, itching, bleeding, and when I was like kindergarten, first grade, it grossed people out, right? So right at the youngest age possible, I was not validated by my peers and I felt rejected. So my tactic to gain validation at that young age was I'm gonna misbehave and make the whole class laugh, because that was my way of receiving validation from them to make me feel better about myself, make me feel like I'm good enough, feel like I'm worthy, right? That was my original form of people pleasing. And then it evolved throughout my life and evolved into like wanting to be one of the more popular kids, wanting girls to like me, wanting it didn't matter what group of people I was talking to. It was just like I had social anxiety and I could not relax and just be myself. I always had to be on edge and I need this person to like me so I can actually feel good. And that's why I said it ruined my life, because that fucking sucks. That actually just feels horrible. And no one should ever have to feel like that. So my journey in overcoming this really started when I first of all realized what this was about. Was it ever really about making people like me? Was it ever really about needing validation? Is that what I was chasing? Or was I chasing something else? Was I chasing a feeling? The feeling of being adequate. See, it never mattered about, oh, I get a like on this post, or this person complimented me, or this person laughed at my joke. That was all surface level bullshit, because the reason I wanted that stuff was because it all gave me this one thing, which is a feeling of adequacy. It made me feel like I'm good enough. It made me feel like I'm worthy. That's what all of that bullshit was about. Deep down, what I was really chasing was a feeling of adequacy. Once I realized that, that's when things really started to change, because then I was able to ask myself the question, if what I'm really after is a feeling of adequacy, and I don't really need this person's validation, I don't really need these people to like me, I'm really just after the feeling good enough, how can I feel good enough without their validation? How can I make myself feel adequate without needing other people to give me that feeling through their validation, as if they're the judge of if I get to feel good or not? They have that power for some reason, right? How can I give myself that power? And there's five. There's five main, I'm going to say four, and we'll get to the fifth one maybe. But there's four main things that have helped me to give myself that feeling of adequacy. And once I gave myself that feeling of adequacy, I no longer felt the need to people please, because I already feel good enough. I already feel good enough in this moment, so no longer do I have to look at this person in a conversation and like try to say something to make them like me so that then I can feel better about myself. I don't need to do that, because I already feel good enough and I can already just relax and vibe, and it makes me have better relationships with people, because now I can just be real. I can just be the vulnerable, authentic me without having to care about being judged, because it doesn't matter if they judge me, because I already know I'm good enough. Their judgment doesn't matter, because I'm already good enough. So let's get into those 4 things. The first one is realizing that right? Everything in nature is good enough. And here's what I mean. Are there any trees that are shaped wrong? Are there any clouds that are poorly made? Are there any wrong flowers? Are there any wrong lizards? Are there any galaxies that are created poorly? No. There's no galaxies that aren't good enough. Everything in nature is good enough, right? And I think sometimes we forget that us humans, we are just as much part of nature as a tree is part of nature. We are that much part of nature. Just like there are no wrong trees, you're not wrong either. You're just another beautiful piece of nature. You're a work of art. That's what all nature is. It's a beautiful work of art. And there's no bad art in nature. Butterflies aren't more beautiful than moths. They're both beautiful pieces of art in nature. There's not one that's right and one that's wrong. That piece, that's something that I learned from Alan Watts. You should look at Alan Watts. It's really changed my perspectives and helped me feel better. But first of all, learning that has helped me. Second of all, letting go of the hierarchies, right? Our society, I believe, has put this thing into our heads that says, here are the people that are at the top of the hierarchy, and here are the people that are at the bottom of the hierarchy, and you're somewhere in this list, right? And what you got to do to feel better about yourself is get as high up as you can on that hierarchy. The higher you are, the better you can feel better about yourself. You don't want to be down there, because then those people can't feel good about themselves, right? And this hierarchy may be amount of money, how like physically attractive you are, what house you live in, bullshit on Instagram, all of that, followers, blah, 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 blah. None of that matters. Where you are in your career right now in life, because some people are like, oh, I'm this age, I should be here. That's a social construct. That's a hierarchy. I'm not at this point. Like, we gotta drop all this comparison because this is not real. This is just an idea that was drilled into our brains, but we don't have to keep it there. We're the ones holding on to that idea by reminding it to ourselves constantly. But you can tell yourself a different narrative. That doesn't have to be the narrative. The narrative could just be everyone's equal. Everyone's good enough. There's not, in dating, for example, there's not a single person in this world that you are not good enough for. And here's the third thing that's helped me. Taking care of myself, right? Because how am I going to feel better about myself? How am I going to feel adequate if I don't treat myself adequately? Okay, I'll say it again. How am I going to feel adequate if I don't treat myself adequately? If I don't drink water, if I don't eat healthy, if I don't get good sleep, what story am I telling myself? Because this is the relationship I'm creating with myself. How you treat yourself creates the relationship you have with yourself. If you don't treat yourself adequately, you're not going to feel adequate. Treat yourself like royalty. You deserve it. Treat yourself well. Then you start ingraining into your mind that, hey, I deserve being treated well. I deserve being treated well. I'm adequate. I'm good enough. I'm worthy. I don't need to people please because I already feel good enough because I treat myself well and I feel good enough and I feel adequate. Right? And part of that goes to like how you speak to yourself. It's not just about like physically taking care of your body, but like how do you talk to yourself? Do you say, there I go again, every time you make a mistake? Or do you say, hey, you know what? Sometimes we make mistakes, it's okay, but we're gonna get back on it. You know, are you supportive? That's been one of the biggest things that have changed me versus me 5-6 years ago is I talk to myself completely differently. I'll show you, under my bed, I have messages that I write to myself, okay? Should I read one? Like, you know, I care about my human experience. I don't shame myself. I love and support myself. I love experiencing my feelings. I don't know if that was upside down. I hope not. I'm sorry. But yeah, one of the biggest ones there is I don't shame myself. I love and support myself, right? These things, like, tell yourself this stuff. Like, for me, this has genuinely made a big difference in feeling adequate. And again, by feeling more adequate, I don't feel the need to people please anymore because I'm already good enough. Because again, that people pleasing was my method of feeling adequate. If I could just people please enough and get enough attention and validation, then I can feel adequate. Or I can do this shit and just tell myself I'm adequate over and over and over and over again until I fucking believe it. And you know what? It's made a big difference, you know? And here's the fourth thing, and this is kind of is one of the big things that I've told myself is I am allowed to take up space. I remember, like, distinctly, this was a big, like, epiphany moment for me. I was, like, walking in the gym, and all the people in there were, like, big and jacked, and I'm not big and jacked, right? And I'm walking in there, and I'm feeling kind of, like, nervous, like, man, I don't belong here, like, I shouldn't be here, and I don't want to, like, get in the way of the real gym goers. I don't want to be an annoyance to them, right? That's a bunch of bullshit, because we're all humans and we all deserve to be in the gym and not feel like we shouldn't be there and like we're being an annoyance to other people. No, I am allowed to take up space. Big epiphany moment. I just kept telling myself that, and I started, like, walking normally, like, yeah, I'm walking up to this machine, I'm gonna use it, I'm allowed to take up space, I'm allowed to be here, you know? So with those four things being said, right, I want to say this now too. Our natural state as human beings is feeling adequate. Children are not born out of the womb like, I'm not good enough. Like, it's very rare that you're going to see a 3-year-old, unless something horrible happened to this 3-year-old. A 3-year-old isn't randomly out of the blue just going to be like, other people are better than me, I'm not good enough. The reason children start not feeling good enough is because something happens to them in society. Like, they get taught for some reason that they're not good enough. And unfortunately, this kind of happens to most of us. And we all have different experiences. For me, I had the eczema thing. You know, some people may have, like, they were body shamed. I don't know what thing you may have or whatever. And we all have had, like, a comparison thing with social media as well. You know, but the point is, our natural state is feeling good enough. And that's the good news, because really this journey for me has not been about, like, forcing myself to feel good enough. It's about peeling back the bullshit that has made me not feel good enough. And by peeling back those layers, it takes me back to my natural state as a human being, which is good enough. It's kind of like a flowing river, right? You are a perfectly flowing river at birth, but as you grow up, society throws rocks into that river. And those rocks make it hard for the river to flow. Those rocks is shit society taught you to make you not feel good about yourself. So by doing the things in this video, what it helped me do is to remove those rocks, aka removing those rocks is unlearning what society taught me, that I'm not good enough. And my natural state as a human being is a naturally flowing river. That is naturally feeling good enough. It doesn't take any maintenance to keep the river flowing. The river just flows because that is the natural state of a human being. So the last thing I want to say here before wrapping up is, if we want to if we want to start feeling adequate and stop people pleasing, we have to stop shaming ourselves for people pleasing. Okay? Because here's the thing, right? The whole reason we people please is because we feel unworthy. We feel shameful. So adding more shame on top of that is not going to help. It's like, I already don't feel good enough. I already feel unworthy. I feel shameful. So I'm just going to shame myself even more because you should not feel that way. I'm going to shame you for feeling shamed. Stop shaming shame. That makes the shame even worse, okay? We need to replace that shame with love, with self-love. Start treating yourself with love and respect. And watch it transform, man. It's not going to happen in a snap of a finger. You know, that hasn't been the journey for me. And as soon as like I stopped putting that expectation that I need to stop being a people pleaser immediately, and I was more graceful with myself, say, hey, you know what? We're going to people please from time to time, but all we care about is we're just going to get a little bit better over time. We're just going to improve just a little bit. People please a little bit less over time. Feel more adequate, just a little more adequate over time. And the more we do that, eventually we'll get to this point where I feel like I'm at now, where I'm not people pleasing this conversation. Of course it happens from time to time, and when it does, I'm not a dick to myself. Like I'm kind to myself about it. Hey, be like, hey, you know what? You've been doing real good lately with the people pleasing. So you know what? It happens time to time. It's okay. You know? And I've heard a lot of crap people say about like, oh, people pleasers are really just manipulators. They're just trying to manipulate people into liking them to get what they want. Now, that's an interesting take, right? Because I do think there are a lot of people out there who just try to get people to like them just because there's really something that they want from them. To me, that's not a true people pleaser. That's just a manipulator. That person is after some tangible thing, money, whatever it is. They're just trying to use that person to get something. That's not people pleasing. To me, people pleasing is your self-worth depends on if this person is giving you validation or not. That to me is real people pleasing. So it's not about, don't feel like you're a manipulator, right? You're not trying to get something out of that person. You're just trying to feel good enough, right? Those manipulators already feel fine. It's just they want something, you know? So anyways, we've said a lot in this video, and I really want to try to make my videos a little bit shorter, so I'll not drag on too long, but I just want to let you know I love you, and you are good enough, okay? Duh. You're a beautiful piece of nature. Of course you're good enough. The heck? Stop being mean to my friend. Thank you for watching the video. I love you. If you want to support the channel, please leave a comment down below. Comments really boost me up in the algorithm. Let's try to get this video to 50 likes. That would be amazing. And I love you all, and peace.